Guns N' Roses is a band that really helped shape what would become a very, very important interest in my life. That being the genre of the music that I would get into. They were the first hard rock band that I ever listened to. And when I think about all the hard rock and heavy metal bands that I like now, and if I hazarded a guess, I would say it's anywhere between 150 to 200 bands that I like by now. Guns N' Roses was the very first one. It, to me, is kind of like where you have Guns N' Roses and then you have every other band. And a lot of people have bands like that. Just Guns N' Roses happens to be that band for me. So it makes perfect sense that for my first ever discography review, I would pick Guns N' Roses to be that band that I would do one on. Now, journey all the way back to 1987. Guns N' Roses released their debut album, Appetite for Destruction, which is incidentally what we're here to review. Now, at this time, Guns N' Roses was not a household name. They were a young and up-and-coming band, eager to make a name for themselves, with an I don't give a fuck what you think attitude. At least that's what they like to project anyways. I'm sure they actually cared about album sales. The difference between Guns N' Roses and a lot of other bands that would come out later, Limp Bizkit, is that Guns N' Roses actually had the talent to back that up. And it all starts with the guitars and the backbone of this band, Slash. This guy is an incredible lead guitarist, and he brings his own style and sound to this band that works really well. And he's backed up by the rhythm guitarist Izzy Stradlin on this album, and the two of them together just work so well. The guitar tones on this album are awesome. It's a very dirty, gritty sound, but yet also very well played, and these two play off of each other very well. The solos, the riffs, there are so many classic solos and riffs on this album, it's ridiculous. And this is one of the foundations for this band. Then we have the bassist, Duff McKagan. There are not a lot of bassists that I've noticed in music. A lot of that due to modern production, and you can't usually hear the bass player in a lot of modern albums. But still, the fact remains there's not a lot of bass players that I really notice, and Duff McKagan is definitely one that I do notice. I don't really judge bass very often, but he definitely has his own sound, and there are definitely some significant lines that he plays throughout the band, and even on this album, that I do take notice of. And then there's the drums with Steven Adler. And I have to admit that Steven is probably my favorite. No, he is my favorite Guns N' Roses drummer. Now, that's no disrespect to Matt, who does a great job bringing his own style into the band, or would later on. But Steven not only has talent, but also has a lot of energy he plays with. And I just really noticed the drums on this album, and I think they're very well played. To round out all that group of talented musicians, we have the front man. You know him, you love or loathe him, Axl Rose. Now, he may not have the best voice in music, though I would argue it's at the very least good enough, and there's definitely some talent in there. But what he may lack in vocal ability, he makes up for in attitude. He sells these songs with his attitude. His melodies are just perfect for these songs. So what the listeners really treated to on this album is the perfect culmination of a bunch of people coming together at the top of their game. You've got Axl Rose and his lyrics and his melodies as he screeches and howls throughout this album. You've got Slash and Izzy Stradlin on the guitars, and God, there are just so many classic lines and solos and riffs on this album. It's ridiculous. I know I've already said that, but it bears repeating. You've got Steven playing with a lot of energy on the drums, and you got Duff doing his thing, and the production. This album has an awesome sound to it, and overall, you just end up with an album that definitely fits amongst my best albums of all time. This is a great hard rock album. This may actually be my favorite hard rock album of all time, if I think about it. I'd have to really think about another one that would compete with it. But this one would definitely be up there. If we're mixing in heavy metal, I don't know that it would be such a clear-cut win, but if we're just talking hard rock, this one wins. This would be my favorite album of all time, hard rock wise. And then, first and foremost, what is important to me on a good album is the songwriting. And this album, they had that. Very good songwriting, choruses, music, everything just put together nicely. And I really like that while each of these songs definitely has the verse chorus aspect going for it, which is one of the main reasons this album was able to be as popular as it was. Maybe not one of the main reasons, but a reason. But it also was, they were not afraid to expand on some of these songs a little bit and do a little bit of a bridge here or there, or change up things just a little bit just to keep it fresh and not so humdrum like a lot of music these days. The album opens with a very familiar song, Welcome to the Jungle, which is one of Guns N' Roses' most popular songs, and very fitting that it would be the first track heard by this band. The song has a great intro. It starts off with some guitar playing that slowly gets faster, if that makes any sense, with a lot of delayed effect on it, so the faster he starts playing, the more crazy it starts to sound. And it really builds, giving the song a great intro. You'll end up with Axl howling, you'll have the drums kicking in, the slow build towards the high energy, up-tempo rocker that is Welcome to the Jungle. The main riff of the song is classic and very, very catchy, and the vocals are great, and it's a wonderfully positive song about how life in LA may not be so glamorous, especially if you're a woman. But I'm sure there are other aspects of that as well, but nah, whatever. The melodies on this song are great. Axl does a great job of going along with the main riff of the song and the verses, and then putting a nice hook together for the chorus. And again, the solo is just classic. I'll probably say that about a lot of stuff on here, but it is. They mix in a bridge, and they even mix in a funky little jungle sounding, I guess, second bridge or whatever, building up to the final chorus. Overall, this is just an awesome song, and chances are you already know it anyway, so I don't know why I'm going into extensive detail for it. But still, great track, great opener. The only negative I can really say is it's become kind of a cliche, but it's still a very good song. The next track is It's So Easy, and it starts off with one of those classic bass lines I was talking about. A very nice way to open the track. Axl actually has a more mellow voice in this song, as he's not screeching his way through most of it. But it works very well. This song is very much a self-entitled or sense of entitlement song, but it works out with the attitude and the I don't give a fuck attitude that they were going for on this album. Again, great melodies, great solos. It's just an awesome song and a great way to follow up the first track. And then we have possibly my favorite song on the album, Night Train. Now, this is a very basic song. We have like an extended verse, or maybe two verses if you want to consider them that. Chorus, solo, chorus, and the song kind of ends. So it'll be really hard to elaborate too much on this song, but what they do have on the song is pretty awesome. The playing, the vocals, it's all pretty solid. I really like the way this song begins with the drums and the guitar lick coming in there. It's a really cool guitar riff. I actually used to know how to play this song on the guitar back in the day. But what really gets me with this song is the lyrics are just awesome. I'm a mean machine, drinking gasoline, and honey, you can make my motor run. Just being one thing I can remember off the top of my head. At some point telling the girl that she can make his money tonight, so I'm guessing she's either a prostitute or he's trying to treat her like one. Either way, this song just screams attitude, which is what I was talking about earlier, and I just love this track so much. And then next we have Out to Get Me, and this was kind of a featured song for me on this album, except for the main three singles from this release. This one was one of the next tracks I heard. This, It's So Easy, and Night Train. And God, is this a good song. I love the opening riff to this track. It builds nicely into the main part of the song, and it also has a nice riff in the verses, and the melodies, again, are just spot on the way they need to be. But my absolute favorite part about this song is the solo. The solo is great. There's a nice section of it leading up to a part where Axl Rose, with all his attitude, says, "Let me see you try," or well, he screams that actually, and then it busts out into more soloing, and it's just such a good song all the way through. Some great drum work. This is an awesome song, and with a name like "Out to Get Me," you can already guess what the song is about. The man chasing Axel down, I guess. I don't know. I guess it's kind of silly in a way, but I can get behind it. Like I said, he sells it with his attitude. And then next we have Mr. Brownstone, which starts off with kind of a funky little intro. That kind of threw me the first time I heard it. Mind you, that this was the first album I'd actually heard in its entirety when I was a young kid. But the intro builds into a solid track. It's definitely a faster paced song. Like I said, kind of funky a little bit. Definitely singing about somebody getting messed up on heroin and all the dangers that happen because of that. Axl Rose, again, actually kind of sings in more of his, I don't want to say subdued voice, but he's not yelling and screeching at the high-pitched level he usually does, so that's a little bit different. Yeah, it's kind of a funky song, I guess, but it's a really cool one. I really like this one a lot, and yeah, it's like each of the songs before this, amongst my favorites on this album. And then next we have Paradise City. Yes, Paradise City. We all know the song. It starts off with kind of the slow intro, going over the chorus that builds. That's an awesome build. I actually really love the intro to the song. That builds into a fast-paced rocker, and well, I mean, it's just classic. You know the song already. Great melodies. You already know the song. It's a great song. It's not necessarily one I always look forward to because it is so cliche. It's one of those songs you'll hear on radio stations. What saves this song and Welcome to the Jungle and a later song on this album is I don't listen to the radio and I pretty much stay away from anything pop culture, so I'm able to kind of get away from it and not be so tired of a lot of these, I guess, overplayed tracks as a lot of people can be. It's still a very, very good song and done very well. Like I said, I still love the intro of the song, and well, I love the song in general. So, like with a lot of albums, this album's strength is definitely in the first half, but the second half does actually give its all to hold up well against the first half. We next have the song My Michelle, which, well, like with most of these songs, is another fast-paced rocker, a lot of energy, and this one kind of seems to go on about some chick who's messed up on drugs and God knows what. Of course, had no parental life and yada, 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 who cares? Again, this is a fairly solid track. It's not one that I think of when I listen to the album, but it's definitely a very enjoyable track whenever I listen to it. And then we have Think About You, which, again, is another fast-paced song. This is where I start to cruise a little bit through the album, as these two tracks are, again, very solid tracks, but not songs that I really think of all the time. And Think About You is just a fast-paced rocker. It's fine. There's nothing really... I guess the one standout about this song to me is during the chorus, there's kind of an overlay of acoustic guitars over the electric, and that's pretty cool sounding. I do enjoy that. I guess a highlight for My Michelle for me, which won't really matter to anybody else, is I actually liked a girl by that name, I think, when I first heard this song. So, of course, that song meant something to me then, but goddamn. Then, of course, we have Sweet Child of Mine. This was actually the first song I ever liked. And so this song is definitely going to have a special place in my heart. It's kind of a silly little ballad. I guess the closest thing to a ballad as you get on this album. It's definitely not like a lot of the 80s ballads you would end up hearing from bands like Def Leppard and Poison and this and that. I do actually like Def Leppard, but, still, it's a pretty solid track. What really makes this one for me is the guitar solos. There is a number of I think there's like a little solo in between the first and second verse, and then of course the main guitar solo is just awesome. One of my favorite guitar solos all time. I really, really enjoy it, and Slash is just awesome and tears it up on this song. So even though it's a silly ballad, it works. And next we have the song You're Crazy, and I do actually really enjoy this song too. This one, it's another fast-paced rocker, one of the faster-paced songs on the album, and It's definitely a very good one. I like the melodies, guitar riffs, solos, all the same things that I've said I've liked about most of the songs on this album. It is definitely very good. So there was really only a slight lull in this album, I guess, with two tracks that I still like, but they're not like the featured songs. But these next two were definitely very strong. And then we get to my least favorite song, and the only song I really kind of don't like, and really the only song that makes this not a completely perfect score album is Anything Goes. Now, the 15-year-old me loved the song, thought it was hilarious, singing about sex, her panties around her knees, her ass in the breeze, blah, blah. I don't know. I heard this was kind of a variation of a song done by Izzy Stradlin and Axl Rose in their previous band, Hollywood Rose, which basically was just the chorus they took, and then everything else is different. I don't know. It's kind of juvenile. It's not a terrible song. I listened to it. I don't need to skip it or anything, but I don't know. It could have been done better. I do like the sound of the guitars during the solo. It's kind of cool. It's nothing you haven't heard before, but it's still pretty cool. Again, not a terrible song, just a little silly, I guess. Which it's my only somewhat negative mark on this album, but for a negative mark, I mean, this would still be a highlight on a lot of like. This song is a hell of a lot better than anything Papa Roach could ever do. I'll just say that. Um, but yeah, it's still a decent enough track. And then we have the closing track. If Night Train is not my favorite song on this album, then it would be Rocket Queen. This is an awesome song. Definitely more groove oriented. It's got a very cool drum beat to start the song out. A lot of energy, some cool effects on the guitars as they build it in. A lot of attitude. I love the vocals on the song. I love the guitar work. It's just a very, very cool song and an awesome way to end the album. And this is one of those songs that I thought about earlier in the review where I said the songs, sometimes they would have a change up within the songs. I thought about Welcome to the Jungle with that little jungle part going on in it. I thought about Paradise City, how they had that intro. And I thought of this song. After the last chorus, they'll do some soloing. I can't remember exactly when they do it, but eventually the song changes. It goes from this kind of mean sounding song to almost like a sweet, like, I care about you type song. It almost sounds like a very different song at the very end. It's pretty interesting, but overall, this is awesome song, awesome way to end the album. Really, when I look on this album, there are 9 classic songs on this album that I just absolutely love, and 2 more that I like but don't love, and then one other one that's just okay. All in all, that is a very solid album. This album is incredible. I don't know what else to say. It's just an awesome album. I'm gonna give it a 97 out of 100. Like I said, I have to knock off a few marks because there's one song that I don't really enjoy so much anymore. But overall, this is a great album, and like I said, it's definitely amongst conversation for my favorite album of all time. Probably my favorite hard rock album of all time. And this is definitely an awesome way for a band to start off their career. But it will also be one that will be very hard for them to top.